we're here this morning because we want to talk about the do's and don'ts with this new process. It's been, I think, for a lot of the designers, trial and error. We've tried to get out through webinars as much information as we could, and giving, the specifics as to what is expected. And and I will be quite honest, there has been a lot of questions that have come through just my office. And we're really pushing for consistency throughout all of the districts with this process, so that the designers, whether they're consultants, they have the same expectations for each set of plans no matter which district they're working for. And the contractors are going to find the information in the same format, in the same
Again, if you'd please check and mute your phone if you're not currently asking a question.
Okay, and I'm also going to talk this morning towards the end on what to expect with lump sum projects. So there's going to be some information in there as well for lump sum. All right, let me go ahead and get started. And if you've seen my summary of do's and don'ts that the webinar that I've already done, some of this is going to look familiar. Basically, some of the do's, we want to, when we're creating summary boxes for all of our pay items. All of these summary boxes are going to go on summary of quantity sheets. They're going to be numbered SQ-1 through however many is required for the job. And they are going to, for a roadway component, they are to be located behind the typical sections. That's not something new, that's the same. I've shown an example here of what that looks like to kind of give it some perspective. We're numbering the sheets as normal, so we've got 1 through 8 to get down to our typical sections. Then we've got our summary of quantities, which are numbered independently, and then it starts again, so it goes from 8, and then it starts at 9, and then you've got the rest of your project.
Denise, Chris Dix, District 2. I was specifically told not to number my sheets SQ.
Well,
that's wrong.
That's wrong. It went out in the bulletin. The bulletin went out as saying these are the changes that we are making, and it is the standard we are going to be going to. And it supersedes the
I pulled the bulletin up and displayed that, and was still told not to number SQ. So is that going to be a requirement, or is that a preference?
It's a requirement. Now, if it comes up to central office and it's not right, the reviewers here, if it goes through a review here, it's going to get called and flagged and sent back. This isn't, and if whoever it is telling you not to, and I'm not telling you to give me any names, but if you could have them contact our office with that, we can help explain things, so it's not all in your ballpark. You can forward it on to us. Okay?
I hit home runs. The ball never stays in the park.
We'll send it on.
Thank you.
Okay. Things we don't want to see, and I have seen this, and I think Missy may have too. We don't want you to mix and match the old summary boxes with new summary boxes. Okay, it's an either or thing, not a both. You're either in in the past, up until now, if they were started their quantities before January 1st, so you may still see this combination of the old summary boxes with a comp book. If they started their quantities after January 1st, they're to use the new plan summary boxes. Okay, they are not the same, so there is a definite difference between the two. Okay, so you're either going to go one way or the other.
District 4, can I ask you a quick question? Is there something distinguished on the summary box so we can tell if it's the new one or the old one? Like, is there a number or a code at the bottom right or something?
One of the things that you'll see there is the design notes and construction remarks on every one of the new sheets.
However, don't depend on that.
Right, but there's a sample of each of the summary boxes in Chapter 8 of the BOE, and we're adding notes to that as questions come up. So we'll keep that posted there. It will say draft on there, but it will have the samples there for you to look at and to see what the latest version of those forms are. What the latest form of the version of the summary boxes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. At this time, we're directing not to add pay items to our summary of drainage structure sheets. Dang it. And there is a logic behind that. When the team met, we talked about the summary of drainage. We decided to leave it as it is a standard sheet that's been a part of our plan set for many years. So we decided to leave it as it was, because if you start putting in the pay items, you're going to wind up with double, triple the amount of sheets. And that wasn't the idea behind this. We weren't trying to blast out our plans and make them huge, even though it seems like it. That would just add even more. The other thing is that we do not want to add the summary of drainage structures to the SQ sheets, the summary quantity sheets. They are their own separate part. They will still be numbered, just like they have been in the past as part of the plan set. So as far as summary of drainage, it should be just what you've always seen. Nothing new there. And the other thing is that sometimes our designers like to get creative and create new summary boxes. If you see one that is not in the list, flag it, because we don't want them doing that. There should be a logical box for every pay item. If not, if a designer, they cannot figure out where to put a particular pay item, they need to contact me or Missy and let us know what the issue is and what the situation is that they've got, and we can help direct them either to using the correct box, or if we've missed something, we're all only human. If we've missed something, then I can run with it and get a new summary box template set up out there and get it out there for everyone. And just as a side note is that when I have major changes, if I'm not, like right now, if I had a new box, it would wait till the end of January because we're fixing to have a maintenance release. But in between times, we post these out there and for everyone to get to. So if there's a new box, like the summary of walls was added back in October. At the end of October, I posted an update to LDM so that everyone would have access to that particular summary box.
For those of you that don't know what LDM is, that's the Link Data Manager. It's one of the enhancements to the CADD software. that the designers will use when they're trying to put these sheets into the plans.
Yeah, sorry about that. All right, moving on. The ones that I've highlighted and kind of like made them a lighter color, those are really for just the designers, and it's not critical for you guys as reviewers and estimators. But some of the things to look for, things that we do want to do, is we want to have them use the DOT templates that's already been formatted. And I will be going through every one of these templates, so you'll at least be familiar and see each one of these today. One of the things that you may see, there may be in one summary box to the next, maybe the description column may be wider. Sometimes that's needed because you've got longer descriptions and it alleviates some word wrap that happens with the tool. There is flexibility. Design columns that are in the standard template can be deleted from that summary, or they can hide it in Excel and it doesn't show up in MicroStation. That is acceptable. That is what we want them to do. If there's a column for a pay item that is not being used on the project, it doesn't need to be shown. And if there is an odd, maybe not used very often pay item that is on a project, for example, there might be, like, I think I've got maybe some special posts with guardrail. It's not part of the standard template, but if they have it, well, it goes in guardrail and they can add that column. Again, that is acceptable and what you should expect to see. It should be, these need to be customized to the project as far as the pay items being shown. Also, the pay items need to be shown in transport format. That's the 0, 3 digits, then you've got the 3 digits, and then 3 digits. So, and there may be spaces in there where it's a -1 would be space 1. So it needs to be in transport format. That way we have it consistent across the board. Things, again, let's look at what we don't do. Yes, we have flexibility and we can delete the design columns that we don't need, but we don't delete anything that's for construction's use. The construction remarks and in the total columns and quantity columns, we've got the P column for the plan and F for the final. The F columns, don't delete those out. They need to remain for construction's use. We don't want to see modifications to the summary box titles or the basic formatting. I have seen where some of the totals, and we'll show you some examples of this, where the total is located is in the first summary box, and I've seen examples where they've moved it to the last summary box. It makes it easier when everyone who, whether it's the reviewers, the bidders, the guys in construction, if they're looking for these totals, if that's what they're looking for it in the same place every time, and helps to eliminate confusion. Another thing that we don't want to see is that there are standard columns set up for location, for the units, the descriptions, which side of the road it's on. Those kinds of things are standard. We don't want to see where they're starting to add new columns in. Again, they're getting creative and changing what adding columns in to provide information that really we want that shown as a design note. Again, it's a consistency thing. One of the things to help make it easier for everyone to read the summary boxes, Some of them are going to get pretty big. I mean, summary of pavement, I've seen, 10, 12 summary boxes, depending on the size of the project, or as little as 2 or 3. But to make it easier, the example that I've shown here is that you see across the bottom, we want to see the pay item, the description, the unit, and then the total shown on the first line of that, for that particular pay item, that first row. We do not want those, that information in those 4 columns to be duplicated as it's shown up here where I say don't, got it X'd out. Because it just makes it very confusing. It all kind of runs together when you're trying to figure out what's what within those summary boxes. It's a lot of information. So this just helps to simplify it and make it easier to read. If they're automating the summary boxes, this is done for them in the correct way. And speaking of that, there's only about half of the summary boxes that are automated. So we will start to see, you will see some people are going to put information in a little bit differently. And that needs to be understood that they're not all going to be exactly the same. They may word design notes differently, and that's acceptable as long as it makes sense. And I kind of touched on this already, some of the things that you're going to see, and reason why these columns are not going to be exactly the same from summary box to summary box is that this is an example right here where in Excel this looks like it fits in here perfectly fine, but when they bring it across into MicroStation, there's a buffer in here that's intrinsic in Excel that is not in MicroStation. So even though it looks okay here, they're going to wind up with some word wrap. This is mostly going to be in the description columns, so they may be pushing some of these out. And I'm bringing this up because I know I have dealt with individuals that can be very, very particular, and the designers should not be tagged or commented on for something like that. It should be perfectly acceptable as long as the information in there is correct. This is something that I've seen in looking at some of the projects that have come in. We've got different, the 2 examples that I have here are the traffic control plan items and the summary of pavement. These are 2 summary boxes that we have. All of the pay items for a particular, that go in a particular summary box. Some of them there's only 1 pay item, so it's a no-brainer. Everything is going to look and just be fine. But there's others like the summary of traffic control plans and the summary of pavement where you've got multiple pay items all going in the same summary box. Okay, they're divided out by the pay item number, so you'll have a pay item number, all the quantities for it, the next pay item number, all the quantities for it. In the case of the summary of traffic control plans, all of my traffic control plans, if it's related to it, it should be on the same box. So this should be one list. What we're seeing come across is that all of the temporary paint is being put into, it's still got the same title, but it's being put into a separate summary box. And I think I understand why they're trying to do it this way, but we want to see it in the same summary box. When they go in here, and I've got an example here of the same thing, only it's in one summary box, okay? And it actually will reduce the number of boxes, because I know like with this one, you're going to wind up a lot of times with at least 2 boxes, because I've got more than 2 phases. And if that's the case, if you'll notice, I do have the paint in here, and I think what's tripping everybody up is this duration column. there isn't a duration, because it's not an each day type item, then it needs to just be left blank. As you can see, these were the paint. In this particular case, they were put in by phases. They actually broke it out. A lot of times, though, they're not broken down by phases, and it's just, you know, you take the total amount of paint and you multiply it times, you know, 2 or 3 lifts, and that's where your total comes from. If that's the case, leave all of this blank, come down here to the grand total, put the amount of paint in, and then just put in here based on 2 lifts or times 2 lifts or something to that effect, so that they know where that is coming from. And again, the summary of pavement, you can see in here, this is like one of the summary boxes that would come like in the middle. And so I've got where base continued from, and actually that right there is wrong. The total should, if it's a continuation, this total should not be shown here. It should be shown only on that first row, which is on the previous sheet. And then it's, once they get all the bases done, then it just starts right into the next pay item, which is the milling here, and go on from there. But it's all one summary box. I think I've got an example here where they must have 11 different summary boxes. And each time you repeat that, you're adding this header information, you're actually creating more sheets for yourself. So that's something to look for. And we'll get into more examples towards the end. I really want to just try to get through as many of these slides as possible first. Missy has in the Chapter 8 draft that is online, she has this recommended order. And basically, this is set up to go, for the most part, by pay item number, so that it's in a basic numerical order. I say basic because sometimes there's going to be some overlapping. And a really good example is like the performance turf. Performance turf is the 575 or something like that. The 570s. But it also includes the
162 for the dirt.
Yeah, for the prepared soil layer. That's also in that same summary box, but the real thrust of that box is the turf, so it comes at the end. And I've still got the update coming soon because it is a draft. It's a working document that Missy has been in and out of when she gets comments, so that, you know, she's making changes to that pretty regularly. In fact, we made several changes yesterday that I imagine if she hasn't posted it already, it will be soon. Okay, but this will just help give a guideline. This has also been given to the designers, so they have the same guideline. They know where to look to help get that in, you know, this sort of order. And I'm going to go through that order and give you an example and some basic comments. And as we go along, if you have any questions, please let us know as we hit each of these boxes. Summary of lump sum items. This is for the lump sum pay items. It has nothing to do with whether or not it's a lump sum contract or not. I've had that question many times. It is not intended for any of the traffic control plan lump sum items. Anything involving traffic control needs to go in the temporary traffic control summary box. Also, any of the pay items that are do not bid, they do not go in the summary box either. For example, the lump sum contract or the initial contingency amounts. Those are only to be shown on the summary of pay item sheets because it's not something the contractor bids on. All right. General items. Basically, this one we put it in there for anything that just oddball type pay items that really didn't go with anything else. There's not very many of those. I've got in here 2 examples, field office and bollards. They really don't go with anything else, so they would go in here. A rule of thumb is that if they've put something in here that needs a station location information, okay, and if it needs the station and location, if they try to put it in this box, they're going to wind up adding in columns. Well, we don't want them to do that. If it needs a station and location, then there should be another box set up for that pay item. Okay. This came up as well, the speed and law enforcement officer. Again, that is not a contractor bid item. It needs to be shown on the summary of pay items, but not in the general items summary box.
So where are those bollards going?
They go on the summary of general items.
No, in the plans. What station?
That one might be an example that needs a location or a design note.
Just asking.
It's a good question.
That's a good one.
We will look at it. And I'm making the note right now. That way we can figure out where it does need to go. That is a good question. All right.
Thanks for jumping in.
Oh, Chris will a lot. Summary of temporary traffic control plan items. I've already hit this pretty well. It's intended for all pay items related to the temporary traffic control plan. There are also some additional summary boxes that are informational, that if the pay item is used, you'll need to add those extra summary boxes. Examples of that are special detours and the temporary crash cushions. I don't have it actually listed here. There's also temporary driveways. That one's kind of iffy. If you've got the information in here, which is where it should go, you don't have to have that temporary driveway summary box. So we're actually looking at that particular summary box, because the way that is calculated is through it's like 250 or 500 cubic yards per mile based on the type of project that it is. So that's something that can just go on within this box without the additional summary box. Another question that came up, we had an old, let me go back to this one again, and I think I've already hit this before, is that one thing I want to point out is the maintenance of traffic. This has come across a lot of times. It is a lump sum pay item, and it being a lump sum pay item, it needs to have a total, because it's lump sum, of 1. Okay, but a lot of people want to also include the total number of days, and I've seen where they put the total number of days in here for this total and not the 1. If the days are to be shown in the summary box, they need to show that as a design note over here. It is qualifying this particular pay item. Okay. Any other things like that, like a part of a formula, like in here, this is where did this 160 come from for this traffic control officer? It came from, there's 4 intersections and 40 hours per intersection. That type of information goes in here as a design note. It doesn't need to be tried to, because I've seen where designers are trying to create extra columns or confusion, going, well, how do I get this information in here? Making it a lot harder than it needs to be. This particular summary box needs to be taken literally as a summary. Like work zone signs, for example. I mean, this is a summary. I have, in this phase 135 days, and I've got a total of 90 signs. to get my totals. I know that to get that 90, that there is more detail involved. That detail needs to be in your backup. There is a design backup worksheet in the template Excel file that can be used, or another Excel file may be used. That is personal preference for the designers. Either one is acceptable, but we don't need to see that broken down in the this summary box. We just need to see these basics. If more detail is desired, it's easy to get to that information from the Excel files and the backup information. Okay. I'll move on to the temporary signalization.
Can I ask you a question about the previous one for 1 second?
Yep.
The 102-1, before we made it mandatory to provide the secondary unit, which is the construction days, now you're saying they don't have to? We don't have to comment on that? In the comp book, we used to tell them, you know, where's the secondary? It should be from a CT memo. 102-1, number of construction days. I thought I heard you say if they wanted to, they can have it. If so, you don't have to make a comment to them?
That may be a district preference. I don't know where it's written anywhere that has to be shown. I know we did put it in the comp book. As the comp book form was set up with the alternate units or secondary units put in there.
Correct.
In that, and so we always just, if it had an alternate unit, you would use that form and we would put it in there. But I don't, it's not necessarily required, because if you've got your phases are broke down and by the number of days. So the days are in here, they're just not totaled per se. But if they want to go ahead and total those days so they get a grand total, we don't want to see it in the grand total column, we want to see it in the design notes. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Temporary signalization. This is an example up here of the old box. And where we showed the existing and temporary intersections and the numbers and the numbers of days for those intersections. Obviously, we don't have the same setup in the new summary box, and there was questions. So this slide got brought in because of those questions. Basically, you've got your pay item, the description, the number, the duration, and then show the total number of intersections, existing and temporary, to get the final number. And then over in the design notes, you know, just put in there, like say, in this example, I've got 5, but in phase 2, I've got 7. Well, phase 2, this is saying, has got, it includes, phase 2 includes 2 temporary signals. That way they can, it is distinguished in here. And you can tell how many are temporary versus existing. All right. Temporary driveways, again, there may be a set of plans where the designer may break out and actually calculate out every single one of the driveways and to figure out what this quantity needs to be. But according to the BOE, that quantity can be derived from using I think it's a minimum of 250 cubic yards of material per mile of your project. And so this is just an example. If, you know, if they put this in here, it's all right. But in this example, it's just the entire project length. That's the quantity, and it was derived using the BOE. That way they know where this came from. It didn't get pulled out of thin air, since there isn't anything else in there with it. Summary of special detours. This box was developed and added into the everything. Basically, it's for informational purposes, and it's just to kind of help out the contractors so they know what is involved with those special detours, since they are lump sum pay items. And this is the basic form, that the template that you'll find, but that doesn't mean that it is, you know, limited to these 4 quantities. Whatever is required for those special detours, for them to construct it, more columns can be added to this template for whatever may be needed. But again, this is for informational purposes only. Temporary crash cushions. This is the summary for that. It has the note in the template for it's for informational purposes only, and it's so that they can. It's the selection of the crash cushions that they need to be using. This information is used, and what you may find, and this is an oops on my part. They may not have the design length. They can add this in. Hopefully the designers have caught that. It was just brought to my attention that I missed it like last week. So it has been added in, and you should start seeing it if you're not now, but that's something to look for, is this design length column. Okay, summary of erosion and sediment control devices. This is not an automated, actually yes it is, it's automated. If they've automated it, what you're going to wind up seeing is that even if it has the same stationing, you're going to see where it's going to go through the same stationing, and it's going to, you know, like if they have the same stationing for, you know, some of these different items, okay, it can be put in if it's within the same station. You know, it could be on one line, but if they've automated it, you're going to see it. But as long as they've got, you know, you may have duplicate station ranges, but it shouldn't be duplicate quantities out in the different columns. This example, and I'm just going to tell you flat out, this example came from the BOE. I mean, not the BOE, it came from the PPM. And this is, if this was what the project was, and these were the quantities that I have, these 2 columns that I've got a line through should have been deleted or hidden. They are not being used on the project. They should not be showing in the summary box. Alright. Summary of litter removal and mowing. This one's pretty straightforward. Just check the duration, and the frequency should be based on 30 days according to the BOE. Isn't it the BOE?
I'm sorry, I was answering questions on the chat here.
Frequency should be based on 30 days.
Always.
Right? Always. And the number of cycles on the project. And just, I mean, this one should be pretty straightforward. It should be one summary box. As you can see, it does fit on one sheet. I have seen it separated out into 2 different summary boxes, one for the litter removal and one for the mowing. But it should be in one box.
Denise, backing up just a second, this has always been one of my questions, and possibly it's a question for Missy. Why are we mowing the asphalt?
We should not be mowing asphalt. It should be from for mowing. It should just be the green areas.
Well, why are those?
Would go from the edge of the travelway, not including the where people are actually driving. We don't want them to go out in the traffic to pick up litter.
in this example, right here, what you see is not what you should actually have. You should have different quantities. And sometimes if it's a rural project, they may be very close. Okay.
So what if they have rubber tire on the road?
That's the litter removal. That's got nothing to do with the mowing.
Well, Missy just said we don't want them to pick litter up out of the road, so we're going to leave the truck tires and the dead dogs out there.
Usually those are moved to the edge of the roadway by maintenance or others.
Not during construction.
Not during construction, they're not.
We have to pick up litter on the roadway during construction.
They will deal
But we don't mow asphalt.
They will deal with that during construction as needed, but the quantities for the litter removal should be from the edge of the travelway, not in the middle of the roadways.
Why not?
Edge of the travelways to the right-of-way line, minus any inaccessible areas. If there's an area that's designated as the contractor's area that would be inaccessible because it's behind barrier wall that they can't get to, then that would be an inaccessible area.
Well, I understand and I will accept your explanation, but I respectfully disagree. I think litter removal should include the roadway area as well.
We battled that one around back and forth with construction and maintenance, and so we appreciate you just being consistent and going with it.
Missy, this is Steve with Turnpike. If I can add something, the litter removal on the roadway itself should be considered part of maintenance of traffic items, the lump sum.
I'm going to let construction, however they want to handle that, but yeah, that makes more sense to get things out of the travelway for the maintenance of traffic, to just move it over. If it's a tire or something like that, just move it over to the side of the roadway where they can pick it up on their normal pickup cycles. But they would remove any hazards right away.
Anything else? But yeah, typically what you guys should be seeing, these quantities, the area here for litter removal should, in most cases, these should not match. Not with the new way you're supposed to be calculating things. So.
And every now and then we still have a few of them asking about that duration on the 30 days. And we don't want them trying to predict the weather, whether it's a growing season or a dormant season. They just need to use the 30 days, and they'll actually be paid for whatever cycles are authorized by construction.
All right. Okay, I'm going to move on to the summary of removal items. Summary of removal items includes clearing and grubbing, and I think there's one other, but clearing and grubbing, removal of existing concrete items, clearing and grubbing is one of our lump sum pay items that is not going to go on the lump sum items because it is a removal item. I've had a lot of questions and confusion on how to set this box up, what goes in it, where does it go. So hopefully I'll answer those questions. But I do have secondary unit columns set up for the clearing and grubbing. And it was a pullover from what you see in the comp books. I'm probably going to revisit this box. Basically, I know I probably have once I flip the slide, and I'll get to the rest of that one. The other thing that I wanted to point out in here is that you may see other removal paid items that wouldn't necessarily go in the roadway, and you wouldn't necessarily expect to see it, like maybe removal of signal items. And the reason you may see that in here would be if you do not have a component set for signalization. then but you have to remove some of the stuff, but you're not doing anything else, then yes, you may see that, and it is acceptable to have it in there and not on a tab sheet if I don't have a component with a tab sheet to put it on. Okay. Here as an example, this particular example, oh, I know what I did. I was in a hurry to get this done. This should say secondary units up here and have the pay item. No, I can't remember exactly what's in there. It says secondary units, and then there was something else. The titles got removed when I hid columns. I need to look at that. And I can show it to you in just a few minutes. But basically, for my clearing and grubbing, I've got the pay item itself. Oh, it should have secondary. Missy pulled it up. It's secondary units, and then it's an area, and then they're acres, because it's clearing and grubbing. And this is where I'm going to revisit this. When I was looking at creating this box to put in here as an example, it just, for this particular, what goes into this removal items, we don't have linear foot. We don't have, it's all acres or square yards. So, and I'll double check to make sure there isn't a linear foot or each items, but I really don't think we do. So I'm going to make this easier for you guys and remove some of those columns out of the standard template. But clearing and grubbing, I am going to show that the units as lump sum and acres. If they just put lump sum in here, that is acceptable. The quantities are broken down to where they're getting their acres from, but it is a lump sum pay item, so the total for that is 1. I had some argument with that one. Well, I won't say argument, but we had discussion on how this should be shown, but it should be 1, and then the total number of acres. I've also seen where they've tried to put a subtotal down here at the bottom, like an extra row. And if it totals over here, there are no subtotals or totals at the bottom. But it's a quantity of 1. And then the total acres, because it is a secondary unit, it's just like with the days, the total is put in here as a design note. Basically, that is there as just a, what's what I'm looking for, reference, being nice, because it is a lump sum, and this is put into transport, and it's not required to having that total, because like I said, it's lump sum, if that makes sense, if I worded that correctly. Let's see. And hopefully this does make sense on how it's put together. Alright, summary of mailboxes. Pretty straightforward. Where they're at, location, and just total them up. And you'll notice in some of these summary boxes I've left the design notes, and some of them I have taken the design notes out. That is an optional column. If they leave it in and it's blank, that is acceptable. If they, remove it so they can try to get 2 summary boxes in a on one plan sheet, that's acceptable too. Summary of earthwork. This is a box. There's no cut and dry specific. This is the way you're going to fill it out. I think it's going to vary by project, but basically, I mean, this is something. I mean, it's pretty much the same summary box that we've had forever and a day. The difference is that I now have a pay item number column, so I'm specifying the pay item number, giving its description, breaking it out, and this is not. We're not going to have all the individual earthwork summary boxes put at the end of each section of cross sections. So, I used to have a box for my earthwork at the end of the main line cross sections, and then And, you know, if I had a side street, well, all those side streets went together, and then I had, you know, for example, Dempsey Mayo, at the end of that run, that last cross-section, there was a summary in there for that. Those are no longer to be put in the plans. The only summary of earthwork is in the summary of quantity sheet. It is to be located nowhere else. So this just somehow, however, whatever they may have on the project is going to differ. But it all needs to be shown here, and then you just break down by the pay item. So I'm looking at excavation, subsoil excavation, and this filled up one of my sheets, and then the next summary box was for the embankment, which I did not show here. But this is going to vary, and how, as long as it covers the cross sections in the earthwork that needs to be performed out there on the project, and it is in here in a format that makes sense. It's understandable. You can go with it. Summary of geotechnical items. Anything that may be out there on the project that's geotechnical, this is where they go. I always get this word wrong. Gabion baskets is another example. We were just talking about those yesterday. Those would go on here. So anything that's geotech would go in this summary box. It would be broken down just like you saw with pavement. You've got your pay item, however many quantities there are totaled over here, and then the next pay item, and it would list down.
The gabions could also be a miscellaneous drainage, depending on how they're used.
Okay. Summary of turnouts. Again, if you've got turnouts on the project, there's the two different. You've got one, it's square yards, and the other one is cubic yards, I think. There's two different ways of calculating this, depending on the pay item that you use, but they would go in here, and it totals down at the bottom. One thing that you may see is that, I just thought of this, is that if they were using the early summary boxes, you'll see in here where all you see for the ones that total down is a subtotal, and then a total. The total is on the first summary box for that quantity, and then each subsequent summary box has a subtotal at the bottom. There originally got started, there was a subtotal, a total, and a plan total and a final total. The final total has since been taken out, but I would not mark that up. I mean, you may comment on it, but I would not, just for informational purposes, so that the next project they go to, that they know that this formatting is changed, but I wouldn't make them redo it if they used one of the original templates, because it's just redundant information, because I have a column for that final total and I don't need it twice. Summary of pavement. This is to include all the roadway pavement related pay items, whether it's an asphalt job or concrete. Okay. There are some things that it does not include, I know we say asphalt, but it doesn't include the miscellaneous asphalt. When I say roadway, we're talking about what we drive on, okay? So miscellaneous asphalt has its own summary box. And believe it or not, I've seen this, so that's why this is here. Do not include pavement markings in this summary box. They go on the tabulation of quantity sheets in the signing and pavement marking plans components. They do not go in the summary of pavement. Summary of pavement, and this one I caught it and I actually marked it out. That doesn't go there. I've kind of already gone through here. The location description, this is just something that they can use to try to make it easier for whoever is either reviewing it, constructing it, whatever, to know where these areas actually are. In this particular case, what I did is I for the description, I put in the side road name. so that somebody going through here would be, oh, that's on this side road and it's not part of my main line. Down here for the asphalt, this over here is the lifts, the thickness of the asphalt needed, because that's part of, you're looking at it in the plans, and this brings up another question that I've gotten a lot, and that's how are you guys as reviewers, and I'm sure you're wondering this yourself, how are you guys as reviewers able to come back and back check this information? And really, there's not much of a difference between, there is, but not a huge difference. You couldn't take that picture we had before. It didn't have dimensions on it. It was a pretty picture of where an area was in the comp book. You've got a plan sheet. You have whether it was on the left or the right side of the road, and you have the station range. So you know about where it's at, and you can guesstimate, if they've gone in and they've got these area IDs in here, that means they've gone in with MicroStation, they've created that shape, and they've had it calculated. And this lift over here is the same ad hoc, when they automate this sheet, this is the same ad hoc that is actually used in the calculation for that area. So it grabs the area, it uses this number in the formula to get this quantity. And hopefully that makes sense, because you won't be getting those pretty pictures anymore. All right. Summary miscellaneous asphalt. Like I said, this is its own box. By default, it has like 4 different uses. You've got under the guardrail, which is the most common, I believe, and then you've got in the median and bike paths and temporary sidewalk and other, if it's none of the above. So there's different columns in there for the miscellaneous asphalt. So that's, just checking against the plan so they get in the right columns, but it's pretty straightforward. All right. Summary of walls. This was one of the newer walls. All wall quantities, whether it was designed by construction or not, goes in the summary of walls summary box, and they are in the roadway component. Okay, so if you've got walls, they will be in the roadway component, and that's where they should be located. They should not be located in the structures component if there is a roadway component with the project. Gravity wall, just want to make a note here is that originally when we got started with this, we didn't have this summary of walls, and gravity wall was to be included in the summary of barrier walls, and that was the direction given. So in these upcoming months, keep in mind that if you do see gravity wall, to make a note that it's in the wrong box, but if it's like a submittal that's going on like now, I wouldn't make them go back and change it, because when they did it, they were doing it with what they had at hand in the direction that they had. But moving forward, gravity wall should be placed in the summary of walls. And barrier walls, like there's a curb and gutter wall, you've got your shoulder walls, your those linear foot type walls, those are what goes in the summary of barrier wall. And the other comment that I want to make sure is known is that in the old summary boxes, we used to have a summary of gravity wall and railing. It combined the two together. That summary box is no longer being used. Okay, so if you see that in a set of plans and they did this, they just tacked on a design notes column and a construction notes column. That's not a standard. That's not a standard summary box moving forward. We've retired those old summary boxes, and in fact, with the maintenance release, they will not have access to any of those because we're deleting everything. It's all gone. That has to do anything with the old summary boxes. So railing, there is a summary of railing, so the railing goes in its own separate box, and then the gravity wall goes in with the summary of walls. All right, summary of box culvert, the concrete, the rebar, whatever's needed for, I think that's it, but whatever's needed for the box culverts, those pay items are put in the summary of box culverts. Okay, not too long after we got this initiative started, we had a lot of questions as far as utility adjustments, and not just adjustments, but like replacements or installing new like valve boxes and junction boxes, where you had sidewalk work. Utilities are one of those that are, it's a very particular area of what we do, and we have to have agreements between FDOT, us, and the utility company for anything that is done utility-wise. That's their equipment, even though it's on our land. So, and that being said, where do you put that type of information? And Missy can help correct me if I'm wrong. She did a lot of the coordination to get all the answers in here. If the utility company is doing the work, they're going to be putting in and replacing the boxes or adjusting them or whatever it is that may be in those areas. It's like curb cut ramps where we're upgrading those facilities, and we're replacing that stuff that is in that area. If the utility company does it, then it just needs to be notated in the plans that is being done by others. And then that's it. There is no calculation, no quantity calculated for it. You're done. If we are doing the work, there should be a utility component set of plans set up to do that work. When we have, if they're in the 1,000 range, we do have pay items for that. The summary of utility adjustments is really intended for adjusting our manholes and valve boxes during our milling operations. So that's really what this box is intended for. So just be careful using this box because it has some ramifications if we don't do it correctly. All right, and there's an example of the box. All right, summary of side drain and mitered end sections. This is related. We took kind of the same page that we had with our drainage. This is kind of a standard box that goes in a lot of plans. The summary of drainage structures, the reasoning is the same. If I go in here and I try adding in pay items, if this is a project and this is what I had going on, this isn't going to fit on a plan sheet, okay, as it stands with all of the pay items included. So it was agreed that the summary of side drain and mitered ends would not have the pay items included on these summary boxes. Okay. Drainage is one of those items that we've been doing for a long time, and we know what everything is. The format's not changing, and so does construction. So these got left alone. Summary of miscellaneous drainage items. Pretty much straightforward, sort of. This is really, its intention is for projects that has minimal drainage work to come in and use this summary of miscellaneous drainage items. Okay. If you feel like, and I know there's some of you out there that do, it's been brought to my attention, if you feel like you do not like this format, okay, and you feel like you need to be showing some of the information as it is shown in the summary of drainage structures, then you need to create summary of drainage structure sheets. Do not include that summary box that looks like the summary of drainage in the summary of quantity sheets. Create the summary of drainage structure sheets. It's a consistency thing. If you've only have a few pay items, this is the format that it needs to be shown in. And I know some of you are sitting there arguing with me with mute going on, but that's okay. Summary of trench drain, straightforward, same deal. Under drain, same deal. French drain, same deal. I'm just sliding through these because we're starting to run short on time. Summary of railing. This is another thing that if you do see this, the plan total is sitting in here, that's acceptable if you're going to nitpick it to that degree, but it should really just say total. But this is the railing, and it should have all railing, whether it's handrail, bike rail, pedestrian railing, guide rail, whatever it may be, it all gets included in this one summary box. And there would be a column for each type of railing pay item that you have. Permanent barrier walls, I've already talked about. Curb and gutter. Curb and gutter, there's several things going on with this one. One, if they automate it right now, this area ID, if they've picked it up or not, is being populated, and they're linear foot items. And you say, well, why do you even have that column? Well, I have that column because we have traffic separators. There is a pay item for special traffic separators that does get calculated by area. It's square yard item. And if that's the case, then I need this column. We are working right now, and it should hopefully get it before our MR goes out, that is fixing that, so it's going to look at the unit. So if it's linear foot, this will be left blank like it needs to be. But right now, that should be left blank, and I have put it out in webinars and asked them to remove this information or the column altogether. The other thing is that, and I don't think I caught it in the end, well, it's because I haven't got there yet. The other thing is that they can put in the design notes over here if they have quantities of curb, traffic separator, if they are removing that concrete in order to put it back because it's broke or whatever may be the case. The removal of that concrete is included in the cost of the new. So that can be notated if that's the case going on out here in the design notes. It does not get, those quantities do not get included in the summary of removal items, okay? Because it's included in the cost of the new, whatever it may be. That's anything, it's all your concrete items, your sidewalk, your curb, all different types of curb, and your traffic separators. All right. The other thing is that right now you don't see this, but this is coming soon. We've got the deduction columns coming in. So that's just something to make a note of, that there's going to be some overlap where you're going to get projects that will have it and projects that will not. It depends on when they actually did the quantities. If they did it after January, then they're going to have this. If not, they won't. So that's just something to keep in mind. Summary of sidewalk and detectable warnings. The detectable warnings is not to be its own separate summary box. I've seen that. It is included in the sidewalk summary, and along with the bus bay and bus shelter concrete. All of this goes in the same box. And every one thing to look for is to make sure that all of the detectable warnings are accounted for, whether it is a retrofit or if it's a new installation. They all need to be calculated. Permanent driveways. Main thing here is that this one's kind of, you may see it done in different ways because these two pay items for our permanent driveways are on this summary box, but they can also be included in the sidewalk because it's 6-inch concrete, or it could be in the summary of pavement. If it's in this box, obviously it does not need to be included in the other summaries. And if it's in the other summaries, then it should be notated that it's for a driveway. That's pretty much it on that one. Summary of ditch pavement, pretty straightforward. Summary of guardrail, this is the standard, but you may see all different kinds of combinations of columns that get added to this particular summary box depending on what they've got going on the project. So that one is one that's definitely going to look different from project to project. Summary of permanent crash cushions. Again, this information, and it's specified out where all this comes from is in the PPM. Pretty straightforward, I think. Summary of fencing. Summary of performance turf. Make sure that aware that it does include the prepared soil layer. It should not be in a separate box. And also make sure that when applicable that we have the subtotal in there from the summary of drainage structure sheets, because there is sod quantities over there on those other sheets. And here's an example. This actually came from the PPM. If they've automated this, it's not going to look like this. This was done by hand, where they've actually broken this out by ramps and your main lines. This is acceptable if that's what they've done, but most likely you're not going to see it this way because they're going to automate it. And when they automate it, it's going to take the pay item and then it's going to sort it by these stations. Okay, I am about to introduce a way to add a secondary sort to this so they can sort it by alignment and then sort it by station. But right now it's all put together, so you're probably not going to see it in this format. Real quick summary of structures quantities. They're to be numbered with the BQ bridge number. The pound is for the bridge number prefixes, if you're reviewing those. So they're a little bit different from us and a little bit more complicated. They just have a different way they put their plans together. But they have a general section, and their general section would not have the bridge number, so it would be BQ dash and then the numbering. And those are basically the roadway summary boxes if it's a standalone project. Otherwise, those boxes should be in the roadway component. And then after those sheets, you have the BQ with the bridge number. So, and they number them 1, 2, 3, 4, however many they have in their plans, and it relates to that. So they have a summary box for, and they've only got one summary box for all of their bridge quantities. So it'd be, you know, the bridge 1, bridge 2, etc. They're to be located behind the key sheet, and if it is a standalone project, they would also have a summary of pay items. It would be behind the summary of pay items. So you'd have key sheet, summary pay items, and then your summary of quantities. This is an example. And if anybody wants this, you can, in my presentation, you can email me and I'll send it to you. And last but not least, lump sum projects. Lump sum projects are to be treated exactly the same as a conventional project. Okay? There's some things that are changing. One of those changes is that, and this has been released with the PPM, is that for lump sum contracts, you will put in the roadway component this note that says that all other pay item numbers shown in the plans are for informational purposes only, describing the work, and the pay item descriptions can be found in the basis of estimates. Okay, this note shows up one time in the roadway set. Okay, unless there isn't a roadway component, then it's in the lead component. Okay, it shows up one time. It does not need to be shown on every sheet. There's a pay item that shows up. It's covered with this pay item note. All of the, and that being said, right now, if you've got signalization in a lump sum project or signing and payment, or especially the signing side of it, you're using pay items to describe the work to be done. Because it's just, those sheets are so full of information to try to change it from a little pay item number to this bigger note. There's not enough room and it gets too busy. And that's why it's been acceptable to leave those pay items in there. Well, now we're just making it consistent. So it's going across the board, even into roadway. And that being said, if you have a lump sum project and you get pay items show up in these summary of quantity boxes, the pay item itself, that's okay as long as this note is in there. What cannot be there are the totals. All right. As it says right here, use of pay items is optional, but whichever way they go, whether they're going to leave a pay item in there in the summary box or not, they're going to go through and delete them all out. Either way is acceptable. They just need to be consistent, okay, throughout. When cross sections are provided in lump sum projects, the earthwork columns on your cross section sheets, they're not to be used. And earthwork is to be calculated anytime cross sections are required, which is basically cross sections are required in a lump sum project anytime the shoulder point is moved. All right. Here's some examples. In these examples, the pay item numbers have been removed. Okay. If they were here, that's acceptable, as long as they've got the note. What we don't want to see is any of the total rows or columns. We want the quantities, but we don't want the totals input in here. Those do need to be left blank. The verbiage in here, subtotal, total, and the column heading, that can stay there. And we want it to stay there because it's part of the finals columns, which is for construction. Construction may not use them for, they may not use them once they get over there to construction, but that's there. We're leaving them there in case they want to use them in any way, shape, or form during construction. All right. And this is a don't for lump sum projects. They put in all of the pay items in a list and then put in all of the quantities. This is not what we want to see. Like I said, this should look just like the rest of the projects. I should have not a list, and these are definitely not all general items. There is a summary box for each of these items, and I'm even seeing like signing. There's signing and payment marking in here. Signing and payment marking should be on a tab sheet in that component. Sign beacon, yeah. And any of the roadway stuff, all of those roadway components, or roadway summary boxes that I just went through, that's what you should be seeing on lump sum projects, just no totals. Signing and pavement markings and signals and architect and landscape and all those other components besides roadway and structures all use tab sheets. Those tab sheets are required in lump sum projects, and they are to be done just the way we've always done them. It would for conventional projects as well. We're not changing how that workflow has been. They're using the tab sheets. The tab sheet should be set up with all of the sheet numbers, just like we've always done. That's not changed. And that's it for my presentation.
Let me get a question in here that came up. One of the questions from District 7 here is, what phase submittal should backup calculations be submitted and reviewed, and where does the calculations folder go in the file structure? Does it stay in the bid set? For reviewers and estimators, you should not need to go into the backup calculations. For the most part, you should be able to see the area ID and a quantity, or a length and a width and a quantity for most of the pay items, and you should know where things are located. So you should not need to go into the backup calculations to verify if they missed the length by 6 inches or missed an area by a square foot here or there. That's not the purpose of your reviews. Should not be to that level there. The software will correctly calculate the length times width if they've used that. If you can look at it and see that there's they're in the right ballpark, that should be your level of checking there. Not to go back and try and verify the area ID and the quantity for each one of those area IDs.
Yeah, any other questions that need to be addressed?
No, the others are minor.
Okay. Do you want me to go through these examples, or do you want to?
Go ahead. We're gonna some of the examples that that were submitted, and Denise pulled some of the information from some of these, and we were just looking at them briefly, so we'll go through them fairly quickly. Again, the summary removal items, I would watch and make sure they're not including the curb or the sidewalk quantities in there for anywhere that it's being replaced or relocated.
Some of the things that, and I'm just going to go through here and just highlight some of the things that I've seen. Again, the initial contingency amount, it's do not bid. It should not be in any of these summary boxes. Maintenance of traffic goes with the traffic control plan. A lot of this is okay, except for here again. The paint should be included in the same summary. I mean, it's got the same title. It's the same summary. So this information here should be in the with the rest of the pay items. The applications, this whole section right here was added in by this designer, and this is not what we want to see. If they have, like these applications, then this information should be in the design notes. If you've got a situation like this one, where you've got these there's an extra column in here which makes the last one, it makes the last one of these larger, longer, whatever. They can take phase 3 and put it up with phases 1 and 2, have 4 and 5, and then have room for your design notes down here. To put in this information, it's based on a certain number of applications or lifts and any other design note information can be put in. This is one here, and this threw me off whenever I looked at it. It starts out with subtotals, and so I've got to go and search and find this grand total, or the actual total for that pay item. Whoever did this on purpose changed this, because this is not the way that the templates are set up. And they went to a lot of trouble to try to do this. We don't want to see them at the end. It needs to be at the beginning. You know, when I first see a summary box, oh, okay, and I can get those grand totals here. It makes it easier for everyone involved when it's the one at the front. As far as the templates go, it's already set up that way, so it's not a hard thing to leave it like it is, to get multiple worksheets to add them together. This one, they broke into 2 separate summary boxes. One was for the litter removal, the other one was for the mowing. I know all of this will fit on one plan sheet with all of the columns. So that should have been left combined together. Here's a good one, the removal items. The acres, this should have been the actual numbers. The numbers go over here. The top one, this should be a 1, and then the grand total of acres should be notated in the design notes. The solids. I'm just trying to think. This is another example of they broke it out by pay item, and it wasn't even consistently by pay item, because some of them you have more than one, but most of these are separate pay item, or summary pavement boxes based on the pay item. But there was one, I think, towards the beginning that may have combined more than one. This is this wall does not exist, this summary box. These do not get combined. This is the old summary box with just these columns added in. So this is totally wrong. Things. Catch me if I missed something. That was good. As you see, they've added in. This was actually done well. They've added in the extra, like resetting, and they did a good job in formatting this and setting this up with all of the. And this is what you should expect to see in there. So that was actually well done. Turf was fine.
The only thing I would question on the performance turf is the preference would just be the performance turf alone, and the sod should only be where it's required in the PPM or shown like with the design standards around the drainage inlets. And I'm not sure if this is the example that had a consistent width of just a roll down the side,
this
but
one isn't.
otherwise it should be using the performance turf, the -1 item as their primary item, and only using turf where required.
Sod.
Or only using sod. Thank you.
Sod were required. All right. This was added in with this, where they've got the summary drainage. There's only a few in here. This would be an example where you only have a few, and you could put these items in the summary of miscellaneous drainage, and therefore eliminate this huge sheet right here completely. But that's going to be project by project, and whoever the engineer is whatever they, their preferences on that. I'm not going to say you have to put this in the summary of miscellaneous drainage. If they want to see and include this, okay, the structure numbers, and because they have a few in here and they've assigned structure numbers to them, and it's showing the number of barrels. If they want this information, then it needs to be in the summary of drainage structure sheets. All right.
One other comment about blank rows. On some of your tables where you may have a blank row to separate out the main line from the side roads, just for clarity and making it easier to read, that's great. But if they've got 20 blank rows, you might want to just recommend that they take out those blank rows that just aren't needed there to save space.
This is I don't know how much is actually in this one. Some of these are bigger than others. Lump sum project, and there is more. Again, watch what's put in here. The painted markings, final surface, that doesn't go in this box. That should be in the tabulation of quantities for the signing and paint marking plans. It doesn't go here. Neither do the other ones, the maintenance of traffic or the contingency amounts. Okay, this is one, this is an example of too much detail. We're looking for a summary. The work zone sign, and that's it. This breakdown should be seen in their backup documentation, but not here. This is way too much information for. I know it's what we're used to because that's what went into our comp book sheets, and this is the way we used to do our comp book sheets. But we're not doing comp books anymore, and we've got to change that whole thought process. We want a summary in here with this information. We still want, yes, but it needs to go in our backup. And so that's why I have this one up, because really. This is too much detail. And actually this one was okay. This is an example where I have removal items, and you notice that it's signal equipment. This particular project does not have a component set for signalization. It's just the roadway. So this is acceptable to have this in here. Again, if I don't have these items, these columns need to be nixed. They need to be hidden. They can hide them or delete them out of their spreadsheets, but they don't need to be shown up in the plans.
Denise, can you go back one page?
Here?
Yes. If this is a lump sum project, why do they have grand totals on that page?
Double check it's lump sum.
Yep. Oh no, it's a traditional.
No, it's traditional. I'm sorry. I do have a lump. I thought I grabbed the lump sum example. I'm sorry.
But I thought it.
Nice catch,
said,
though.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. My bad. That was my bad. Yeah. This is an example of what I've been talking about, where whoever created these before I redid these, and it's got the final total. At this point in this stage in the game, I would not make the designer go back and redo everything just because this extra row is in here. Going forward, we should not be seeing these anymore as they use the new templates, but this was part of the old templates that they were provided to use. So yeah, just use. The idea behind this switch is that we didn't and we don't want to make things more difficult in order to get our plans out the door. So something minor like this should not be kicked back and hold up a project just because they've got extra rows. that's minor. Okay, well, this one has been like that since the get-go.
Missy and Denise,
Yes.
for the culverts that's bridges, how they going to list those in the culverts, or would they list them with the bridges?
Bridge culverts go with the summary of structure quantity sheets.
Okay.
That's in structures.
Okay.
And I think, and again, this was an example of, but actually yeah, this is a summary of drainage structure sheet, and this is all that they had, and it's mitered ends and some pipe. If this was the case, and as small as this box is, I would recommend, I mean, this isn't wrong per se, but I would recommend this going on the summary side drain and mitered ends. They do have, although there's no quantity for the DBI in here, which is weird. But if this was the case, this could go on very easily could go on the side drain, summary side drain and mitered ends, and then summary miscellaneous for more than 2 or 3 DBIs. And that's why we did that, is so that you can take that small box, put it in with the rest of those boxes, and not have to create additional sheets for these small, very minimal drainage work projects. All right, let me find the one that is lump sum. These guys actually did pretty good. This one is lump sum. You can see they've got quantities, but they don't have totals. Let me get in here. Okay, so most of these comments I think are the same ones that I've been making. Just wanted you to see an example of what to expect for lump sum. They may have broken this one down. I don't know why. Simply, it may have gotten just a little bit too long, so they just kind of broke it more in half. I'm not sure. That doesn't have to be broken out like that. It might have fit on one, but that's neither here nor there. Again, you can see these totals. They're still here. The columns are still here. Yeah, this was done wrong, but
This is Allie, District 4. Missy, are you going to go over the ones that I sent you with the lump sum project?
She's got 2 or 3 more projects that,
tell me the name and I'll do it now.
The project number?
Project number.
there was a KCA.
It's 433907-1. The main thing is with the MOT pay items and where we're supposed to show them, and we're not supposed to show totals. How do you do the calculations if you don't show totals? That's the main question.
43, is this one it?
433907.
Okay, Missy didn't give me that one.
Copy that one over. Let's see if I can.
Okay, so what is the question that you had? And I might can answer it.
If you go to the summary, the pay items, where we're supposed to show the pay items for lump sum projects also, but not totals.
Okay, so.
But it looks weird when you have, for example, phase 1 is 30 days and you need quantity of 30, for example, and then there is no calculations. There's no total of 30 times 30. It just shows, you know what I mean? 30 and blank. I don't know.
For traffic control?
Yes, like the 102-60 or whatever.
Okay. Okay. For example, this one.
Yeah, let's say they only have one phase.
Okay, so I've got phase 1.
Right, only phase 1.
Oh, so you don't have a phase 2.
Right, there's only one phase.
What I would do is I would Leave phase 1 in here like it is. Delete phase 2, because I understand where you're coming from. I do. Delete phase 2, but leave this grand total blank.
Okay, so you show total for phase 1, but you don't show the total on the other one. Got it.
Don't show it as a grand total.
And when it comes to like the clear litter removal and mowing, what about litter removal and mowing? When you only have one.
Like for here. I mean, like I said, there's some things you're just not going to be able to help. If you've only got one area, or like you've only had one run of earthwork, so you've got, you know, that run of earthwork said I had so many cubic yards of whatever, and then it is what it is. Just don't, it's like in this example, they have totals. You might only have one here. But I don't have a subtotal and a total at the bottom. Leave these blank. There's some things that there's just, I mean, common sense has got to tell people there's no help for it. And hopefully, as reviewers, you guys understand that in situations like that, there's no help for it. You have to show it.
So we do want to show the calculations, just don't repeat it again in the total.
Show that it's been calculated. Show that it's been calculated by putting it up here, but don't put this information down here for the subtotals and totals.
Thank you very much.
I've been closing them as I go through them. And really, we're out of time. It's almost lunchtime, although we did get a late start. Does anyone else have any questions for me? Wanted me to try to find an example. I don't have obviously everything. There was a couple of projects that were given to me, and Missy has gotten a hold of a few projects. So, I mean, these things are just now starting to come in, and where we can actually see how it's being applied and implemented. And that's why at this point we're seeing some things, and instead of letting them go on and on and on, trying to catch them early so that you guys are aware of the way it needs to be done, and things that you need to comment on, and things that, you know, to kind of be flexible and kind of let go.
Missy, how are we going to handle maintenance of traffic where they have a lot of, say, temporary pavement, temporary lighting, temporary drainage, and temporary stuff that's included in maintenance of traffic? They've been adding it as notes before. Will they still add it as notes and don't put and then they usually give a total at the end that may include this many linear feet of temporary pipe, or temporary this, temporary that. How would they handle that, or it will still be handled the same way it's handled now?
It should still be handled the same way as it is now for some of those temporary items, with the notes down below as to what it includes.
See like right here, they're still including those oops, it's grabbed everything. It's still including those pay item notes in here. So it's going to be handled the same way. This is just, this up here, you're going to have all the pay items listed needed. Anything extras required or notes like that would still be included with the pay item notes, and then just quantified at the top.
Okay, so it'll be just one then.
If it was included, if it's to be included with the maintenance of traffic pay item, then yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And if you've got some of these project questions on a case-by-case, then feel free to copy us both, and we'll be happy to work together. And we're still, as some of these issues come up, we're documenting them in the BOE and updating the Chapter 8, putting them into these presentations to share the information with others. So we do appreciate your questions and your input.
Oh yeah, because I mean it's like anything else that I've ever done. This has been a little bit different for me, but helping to implement this. But as far as like all of our CAD stuff, there's always situations that no matter what we do on our side, we're never going to think of everything, and there's going to be situations that you're going to run into, and I've had some doozies that have come across my desk where they've got projects that they're working on, and there's no roadway component, or there's no signing and pavement marking component or whatever, but they've got pay items related. So how do they get all of that in there when they're, to facilitate to get this implemented for that project? It's going to be project by project. So if you run into those, like Missy said, please call us. Don't struggle with it. Get the right answers. Do it right the first time. That way it should go all the way through without a lot of headache.
I guess to wrap it up here, I just again want to say thank you to Denise and Jimmy and James for helping with the recording and all of their input throughout this the process here over the last year. So it's been great with working with the CAD office. Thank you, everybody.
You guys have a great day.